Pakistan has summoned Iran's top diplomat in Islamabad over what it describes as an unprovoked violation of its airspace. Tehran fired a missile that landed in Pakistan's Balochistan province, killing at least 2 children. Now, Iran says it was targeting the headquarters of Jaish al-Adl group. It also blames them for several targeted attacks on security forces over the years. Well, let's get more on this from our Pakistan correspondent, Kamal Hyder, who joins us from the capital, Islamabad. Kamal, an attack by Iran on Pakistani soil. The diplomats have been summoned, and one wonders how far this will escalate.
Indeed, that is a good question. Actually, just on Monday, it is surprising that both the Pakistanis and the Iranians held discussion in Tehran in which they expressed concern about armed groups operating from Afghan soil, saying that it was a security threat to both countries. And now this attack happening in Panjgur, very close to the Iranian border. Pakistanis, of course, are not happy. This is not the first time, however, that Iranian drones have been involved. A few years ago, Pakistan shot an Iranian drone inside Pakistani territory. And so there is, of course, concern that Iran did not take Pakistan into confidence, although both sides had agreed that they would cooperate closely when it comes to action against these groups, because the Jaish al-Adl, as you mentioned, this is a group that sprang up from the Jandullah group, which was led by Malik Reghi. Malik Reghi was captured by the Iranians in 2010. He was then hanged in a prison in Tehran in 2010 also. So, indeed, that group has been blamed by the Iranians. However, the Pakistanis are saying that there were no other casualties except children, and that this was a flagrant violation of Pakistan's airspace and sovereignty.
We'll come back to you, Kamal, as and when that situation develops. But thank you. Kamal Hyder there for us in Islamabad. Let's keep on message and speak to Zeeshan Salahuddin. He's a security issues specialist. He's also the director of the Centre for Regional and Global Connectivity at Tabadlab. That's an advisory services firm focusing on geopolitics, and joins us from, again, the Pakistani capital. Good to have you with us, Mr. Salahuddin, on the programme. One wonders, will Pakistan respond, and if so, how? Because escalation is a real worry right now.
Absolutely, and we're seeing this level of escalation spread very rapidly across the Middle East, reaching all the way towards South Asia and Pakistan right now. I think in Islamabad, there's a real sense of betrayal. I mean, the relations between Iran and Pakistan have historically always been delicate at the best of times. But there's been a component of, strategy and cooperation in that relationship. Pakistan has also maintained at the international front that the sanctions against Iran amount to collective punishment. It is unfair to the millions of people that reside inside of Iran. And therefore, having this kind of a missile attack or drone strike, the exact details of which are clear, this kind of a unilateral action, bypassing the many established diplomatic and military channels that do exist between the two countries, is really being viewed as a matter of great betrayal. Sure. By Iran. And as Kamal also mentioned earlier, this particular group, which has been blamed to be operating inside of Afghan soil. Afghanistan, it seems, is not one of the 3 countries that Iran has struck out in the last 24 to 48 hours.
In terms of this group, is it dangerous for Iran to start flexing its regional muscles? It's playing a very dangerous game, is it not, at the moment, when it's opening another front, when many Western countries are already blaming it for its support of Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen?
Absolutely, and I think that's the perplexing part of all this. Iran faces significant geopolitical and international criticism for its involvement and backing of groups both in Lebanon and in Yemen. And in the middle of all that, to open up this new front is just unprecedented. Now, we do know that Iran has been quite upset about the massive suicide bombing that happened on January 3rd in Iran that killed close to 80 people. And the group IS, Islamic State, took responsibility for it. And it was thought that the strikes Iran conducted yesterday in Syria and Iraq were in direct retaliation to that. But then switching focus 24 hours later, striking allegedly a group inside of Pakistan is just a very strange move. It's almost as if It's designed to pull Pakistan into a conflict that Pakistan has been observing and commenting on from afar, but is not necessarily directly a part of. I will also remind you, Sohail, that drone strikes are not a new phenomenon in Pakistan. Under the Obama administration, hundreds of drone strikes were carried out inside Pakistani territory. But the difference between then and now is that at that point in time, Pakistan was a frontline ally in the U.S. global war on terror. And there was some level of tacit agreement and coordination between the two sides, the Pakistani security forces and NATO and ISAF in Afghanistan, when these kinds of drone strikes would happen. This is completely unprecedented. And much like those drone strikes, a complete circumvention of international law.
As well, what our viewers perhaps won't be so familiar with is the problem that both Iran and Pakistan both have in that region of their territory, because there is a secessionist movement that has been bubbling under for many decades, both on the Tehran side, the Iran side of the border, which is also a Balochi-speaking community, as well as the Balochistan side of Pakistan. I mean, apart from what's going on in Gaza, this is another element within that discourse for groups that either don't like Islamabad or don't like Tehran.
Absolutely, and that's the unifying force. The key thing about this particular group, which has been active since 2013, is that it's both ethnic in nature, in that it is a Baloch insurgency group on both sides of the border, as you said. But on top of all that, it's also a Sunni Salafist group, which means it's very much opposed to Tehran and has a bit of a bone to pick with Islamabad as well. The important thing to consider here, Sohail, is that in the past, we've seen one of two things play out. The first is, in the case of the Balochistan attacks that India conducted inside of Pakistan, Pakistan then shot down an Indian pilot. That situation was then successfully resolved, the pilot being handed back within 72 hours over the border. And then on March 9th of last year, there was a nuclear-capable missile from India that landed inside of Pakistan's territory, to which Pakistan also responded very responsibly and kept its composure and decided not to escalate matters more kinetically. My hope is that Pakistan will also show some level of restraint as far as this particular incident is concerned. But the fact of the matter is that the same chief of the army staff that currently leads Pakistan's armed forces was the DG of the military when the Balochistan incident happened. And this kind of blatant aggression, my fear is that might not go unanswered.
We'll see what does happen, though. Zeeshan Salahuddin, thanks so much for joining us from Islamabad.